How much of a celebrity's life do we actually know? What if the image Hollywood spent decades selling was never the complete story? Behind the fame, applause, and unforgettable faces were hidden identities, private struggles, and rumors that still spark debate today. Some stars eventually shared their truth with the world. Others left behind questions history continues to explore. Stay with us as we uncover remarkable stories the spotlight never fully explained and discover why appearances can be the greatest illusion of all. Can the world truly see you if it only celebrates the image it created for you? Before Andreja Pejíc publicly shared her identity, the fashion industry already considered her unforgettable. Born in Bosnia and raised in Australia, she attracted worldwide attention with an androgynous appearance that challenged traditional ideas of beauty. Designers featured her in both men's and women's collections, praising her uniqueness while often overlooking the person behind the photographs. The source material explains that Andreja publicly discussed her transition in 2014 after years of knowing she was a woman. The decision carried professional uncertainty, yet she chose honesty instead of continuing to live behind an image that no longer reflected her identity. Later, Vogue profiled her journey, and she appeared in a widely reported beauty campaign that marked an important moment for transgender visibility within the fashion industry. Andreja's story reminds us that recognition does not always bring understanding. The fashion world noticed her long before it truly knew her. Her greatest achievement was not becoming a successful model, it was giving audiences the opportunity to see the woman behind the image, rather than the mystery they had admired for years. What happens when the world believes it already knows who you are before you've had the chance to explain yourself? For Chaz Bono, that challenge lasted a lifetime. As the child of Sonny Bono and Cher, he grew up in front of cameras, long before he could define his own identity. Millions watched him grow, but the public image they remembered never reflected the person he truly felt himself to be. The source material explains that Chaz publicly announced his transition in 2009, with his legal name and gender change approved by a California court in 2010. His documentary Becoming Chaz, released in 2011, offered audiences an honest look at his transition, while his appearance on Dancing with the Stars brought transgender visibility into millions of American homes. The response was mixed, yet his willingness to share his journey encouraged conversations that many families had never experienced before. Chaz's story reminds us that the hardest journey is sometimes asking people to let go of the image they've carried for decades and finally recognize the person standing before them today. Can someone become one of the world's most recognizable athletes and still feel that their true identity remains unseen? For Caitlyn Jenner, that question followed decades of extraordinary public success. After winning the gold medal in the decathlon at the 1976 Montreal Olympics, Jenner became an American sports icon before later reaching an entirely new audience through reality television. Fame brought admiration, but it never erased a deeply personal struggle that remained hidden for many years. The source material explains that in 2015, Jenner publicly discussed her gender identity during a widely watched interview with Diane Sawyer, sharing that she had privately lived with that truth for decades. Soon afterward, the Vanity Fair cover introducing "Call Me Caitlyn" became one of the year's most talked about cultural moments. The documentary series I Am Kate later followed her life while also exploring broader conversations surrounding transgender experiences and visibility. Caitlyn Jenner's story continues to inspire both admiration and debate. Regardless of differing opinions, her public transition marked a significant moment in celebrity culture, reminding audiences that even global fame cannot replace the simple human desire to be recognized for who you truly are. What happens when every achievement is overshadowed by a debate far bigger than the sport itself? Fallon Fox entered mixed martial arts determined to compete as a professional fighter. But after her transgender identity became public in 2013, nearly every conversation shifted away from her skills inside the cage. Instead of discussing training, victories, or technique, headlines focused on questions surrounding fairness, eligibility, and women's competition. The source material explains that Fox became widely recognized as the first openly transgender athlete in professional MMA. Following public disclosure of her transgender identity, sports organizations, promoters, athletes, and media outlets debated whether she should be allowed to compete. Some defended her participation, while others expressed concerns about fairness and safety. As those discussions intensified, Fox continued defending both her career and her right to compete, even as public attention often centered more on controversy than athletic performance. Fallon Fox's story reminds us that visibility can bring opportunity as well as intense scrutiny. Whether people supported or opposed her participation, her presence changed the conversation surrounding transgender athletes. She became more than a fighter in the public eye, standing at the center of a debate that extended far beyond the boundaries of professional sports. Can one television appearance define your identity forever, even after your life has completely changed? Carmen Carrera first became widely known through RuPaul's Drag Race, where audiences admired her beauty, confidence, and stage presence. After the competition, however, she began a new chapter by publicly living as a transgender woman. While Carmen embraced that journey, many viewers continued seeing only the television character they had first met, making it difficult for her to move beyond earlier expectations. The source material explains that Carrera spent years clarifying the difference between performing in drag and being a transgender woman. Interviews described how public conversations often focused on deeply personal questions instead of her professional achievements. As awareness grew, she expanded her career into modeling, acting, and advocacy, while encouraging greater respect for transgender people in entertainment. The source also notes broader industry discussions about language and representation that reflected changing attitudes during that period. Carmen's journey reminds us that visibility alone does not guarantee understanding. Being recognized by millions is very different from being genuinely seen. Her story encourages audiences to look beyond first impressions and appreciate the person behind the public image rather than the role that introduced them to the world. How do you grow up when the entire country is watching? Most children are free to discover who they are in private, but Jazz Jennings began sharing her journey with millions at an age when most kids were just starting school. From the beginning, her story became part of a national conversation about gender identity, making her one of the most recognizable transgender young people in America. The source material explains that Jazz first gained national attention as a child through a television interview with Barbara Walters, where she spoke openly about her identity with the support of her parents. In 2015, TLC premiered I Am Jazz, documenting her everyday life, friendships, family experiences, and the challenges of growing up under constant public attention. The source also notes that she became a Human Rights Campaign youth ambassador and was recognized as one of Time magazine's most influential teens. Jazz's journey reminds us that visibility can inspire hope, while also bringing enormous responsibility. She wasn't simply growing up, she was helping countless families better understand transgender youth, proving that honesty, resilience, and family support can open conversations that once seemed impossible. What if one role could change not only your career, but also the way millions of people understand an entire community? That was the challenge Laverne Cox faced when she appeared as Sophia Bursette in Orange is the New Black. Before the series, she had already worked as an actress and television personality, steadily building her career. Yet this groundbreaking role introduced her to a much larger audience and placed unexpected responsibility on her shoulders. The source material explains that in 2014, Cox became the first openly transgender performer nominated for an Emmy Award in an acting category. That same year, she appeared on the cover of Time magazine's Transgender Tipping Point issue, helping bring transgender visibility into mainstream public conversation. Rather than limiting her influence to acting, she used her growing platform to discuss dignity, safety, representation, and the importance of seeing transgender people as complete human beings instead of headlines. Laverne Cox's journey reminds us that meaningful representation extends far beyond the screen. Her success opened conversations that reached countless homes, proving that one honest performance can challenge stereotypes, inspire understanding, and encourage audiences to see people through compassion rather than assumptions. How much success can someone achieve while still feeling unable to reveal the most important truth about themselves? Before millions recognized Geena Rocero as an advocate, she had already built a successful modeling career. Born in the Philippines and later moving to the United States, she worked in fashion while carefully protecting her identity. To the public, she appeared to have achieved the dream many aspiring models pursued. Yet one deeply personal chapter remained hidden from nearly everyone around her. The source material explains that Rocero publicly came out as a transgender woman during her 2014 TED Talk, Why I Must Come Out. The widely viewed presentation transformed her public role from fashion model to international speaker and advocate. She later founded Gender Proud, using her platform to promote dignity, visibility, and equal recognition for transgender people around the world. Rather than allowing fear to define her future, she chose openness after years of professional success. Geena's journey reminds us that true freedom does not always begin with achievement. Sometimes it begins with honesty. Her story shows that revealing the person behind a successful public image can become the most meaningful accomplishment of all. Can the world ever look beyond what makes someone appear different? For Erica Irvin, known professionally as Amazon Eve, extraordinary height brought immediate attention wherever she went. Standing 6 feet 8 inches tall, she became one of the world's tallest professional models. Yet public fascination often focused on her appearance before anyone took time to understand the person behind it. As a transgender woman, she faced the additional challenge of building a career in industries that frequently treated difference as spectacle instead of individuality. The source material explains that Irvin gained wider recognition through American Horror Story Freak Show, where she portrayed Amazon Eve. According to the source, she informed the casting team that she was transgender only after earning the role, highlighting the complicated balance between professional opportunity and personal privacy. Beyond acting, she later spoke openly about body image, rejection, acceptance, and the importance of finding supportive communities while navigating public life. Erica's journey reminds us that first impressions rarely reveal an entire story. Although audiences initially noticed her height, her lasting impact came from confidence, resilience, and authenticity. She encouraged people to look beyond appearances and recognize the individual standing behind the image, not simply the characteristics that attracted attention first. How well did the world really know James Dean? Even after becoming one of Hollywood's most enduring legends, many questions about his private life remained unanswered. With only 3 major films east of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant, Dean created an image that defined youthful rebellion for generations. Yet the man behind that unforgettable screen presence remained far more complex than the public image promoted during the 1950s. The source material explains that Dean was never publicly known as transgender and never had the opportunity to describe his personal life in modern terms. Later biographers, journalists, and people connected to old Hollywood discussed the possibility that he was bisexual or sexually fluid, while also acknowledging that much of the conversation relies on later accounts rather than public statements from Dean himself. The source presents those discussions as ongoing historical debate, rather than established fact. James Dean's story reminds us that fame often creates lasting myths, while leaving important questions unanswered. His legendary image survived long after his tragic death, but the private person behind that image remains difficult to define. Sometimes history preserves the icon, while allowing the individual to remain forever surrounded by mystery and quiet speculation. How much of a person's life can remain hidden when the entire world believes it already knows them? Barbara Stanwyck spent decades proving she was one of Hollywood's finest actresses, earning admiration for unforgettable performances in films including Stella Dallas and Double Indemnity. Audiences recognized her strength, intelligence, and remarkable screen presence, yet her private life continued attracting quiet speculation long after the cameras stopped rolling. The source material explains that Stanwyck's personal life has remained difficult to define with certainty. Although she was married during her lifetime, later LGBTQ writers and Hollywood observers discussed rumors surrounding her sexuality and her close friendship with publicist Helen Ferguson. The source emphasizes that these accounts should not be treated as confirmed fact, noting that many questions surrounding her private life remain unresolved rather than conclusively answered. Barbara Stanwyck's story reminds us that not every Hollywood mystery receives a clear ending. Some lives remain surrounded by questions because the people at their center chose privacy over explanation. Her extraordinary career continues to inspire audiences, while the quieter chapters of her life encourage us to distinguish lasting achievement from speculation and to approach history with curiosity, fairness, and respect. How many people truly knew Anthony Perkins beyond the unforgettable shadow of Norman Bates? Although Psycho made him one of Hollywood's most recognizable actors, that legendary performance also shaped the way audiences viewed him for the rest of his career. Long before Alfred Hitchcock's classic Thriller, Perkins had already earned critical acclaim with Friendly Persuasion, establishing himself as one of Hollywood's most promising young stars. Yet behind that remarkable success stood a private life the public rarely understood. The source material explains that Perkins later married photographer Barry Berenson and became the father of 2 sons. It also notes that later biographies and Tab Hunter's memoir discussed Perkins's earlier relationships with men, including his reported relationship with Hunter during the 1950s. The source presents those accounts as part of the historical record surrounding his life, while emphasizing the pressures Hollywood placed on maintaining a marketable public image. Anthony Perkins's story reminds us that extraordinary talent can exist beside extraordinary privacy. While audiences remembered the character he portrayed on screen, the man behind that performance remained far more complex than Hollywood's carefully constructed image ever allowed people to see. Was Marilyn Monroe ever allowed to be herself? Or did the world only embrace the image Hollywood created? Behind the dazzling smile, glamorous photographs, and unforgettable performances stood a woman whose private life has inspired endless discussion for decades. Films such as Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, The 7-Year Itch, and Some Like It Hot turned her into one of cinema's greatest icons. Yet fame often reduced her to a carefully managed fantasy instead of a complete human being. The source material explains that Monroe never publicly identified as transgender. Instead, later writers discussed questions surrounding her sexuality and possible emotional or romantic relationships with women, particularly acting coach Natasha Lattès. The source emphasizes that these accounts remain matters of historical interpretation, rather than confirmed fact, noting that many biographers have avoided presenting those relationships as definitively physical. Marilyn Monroe's story reminds us that celebrity images often reveal only part of a person's life. The public celebrated beauty, charm, and romance, while the woman behind the legend remained far more complicated than the studio system wished audiences to see. Her legacy continues encouraging people to look beyond famous photographs and appreciate the human story hidden behind Hollywood's brightest spotlight. Did Hollywood create Cary Grant, or did Cary Grant spend a lifetime protecting the man behind the famous name? Audiences admired his effortless charm, impeccable style, and unforgettable performances in classics such as His Girl Friday, Notorious, and North by Northwest. He became the image of sophistication that millions trusted and admired. Yet behind that polished public identity, questions about his private life have remained part of Hollywood history for decades. The source material explains that Grant shared a home with fellow actor Randolph Scott during the 1930s, a living arrangement that attracted considerable attention from the press. Later writers and historians debated whether their relationship extended beyond close friendship, while others argued the available evidence does not support a definitive conclusion. The source presents these differing interpretations without confirming any single explanation, emphasizing that much of the discussion comes from later historical analysis, rather than public statements made by Grant himself. Cary Grant's story reminds us that lasting fame often leaves unanswered questions. Hollywood successfully created one of cinema's greatest leading men, but the private individual behind that carefully crafted image remained known only to those closest to him. Sometimes the greatest mystery is not what history reveals, but what it can never fully explain. Did Randolph Scott deliberately keep part of his life hidden, or has history simply filled the silence with unanswered questions? For decades, audiences knew him as the quiet, dependable hero of countless Western films. With performances in movies such as Ride the High Country, Scott became the very image of strength, discipline, and traditional masculinity. Yet behind that familiar screen persona, one friendship continued attracting attention long after his acting career had ended. The source material explains that Scott shared a home in Santa Monica with Cary Grant during the 1930s, a residence the press famously nicknamed Bachelor Hall. Their close friendship, photographs together, and living arrangement later became the subject of ongoing historical discussion. Some writers interpreted their relationship as romantic, while others argued the available evidence remains insufficient to support that conclusion. The source presents these differing perspectives without treating either as established fact. Randolph Scott's story reminds us that not every chapter of Hollywood history can be neatly explained. His remarkable career remains undisputed, while questions surrounding his private life continue inviting careful discussion rather than certainty. Sometimes the greatest mystery survives because the people who lived it chose silence over explanation, leaving history to search for answers generations later. Every story we've explored reminds us that fame can preserve an image while hiding the person behind it. Some found the courage to share their truth, while others left only questions history continues to examine with care. Which story changed the way you see these Hollywood legends? Tell us in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more fascinating stories. Thanks for watching.